Okay, so this video relates to the theory of the rendering process. I'll split the rendering process into various stages, but I'm not actually going to render anything in this instance. I'm just going to explain the logic, or explain the approach which one uses, or which I use as I render. So the way I tend to think about it is it's kind of like the way a computer would treat an image. So I think, anyway, I don't know, but I think when a computer considers an image, it considers this space and then it deconstructs the space into a series of very small areas which exist within it in a grid formation, i.e. the pixels, and then it assigns each of these pixels a tone, and yeah, the consequence of that is this is in fact just a grid with areas assigned tones, and it's just a collection of these areas which form this image in the eyes of a computer. I think that's how a computer works anyway, how a computer considers this image, or an image. So if that is the way, then your approach to rendering has to be quite similar in that you have a series of tones at your disposal, and you have an area, and you have to divide the area up into tones of different darkness, of different levels of darkness. So, I mean, technically, you've got a huge amount of range at your disposal because you've got 12 pencils, and each pencil, generally I don't think you can use more. I don't tend to use more than like 4 or 5 layers because I find it starts to get a bit shiny when light hits against it, and it doesn't really look very good. And I also don't use 1 layer because then you can really see the direction of the pencil strokes. So I tend to use between like 2 and 4 layers. But then you've also got the fact that you can hold the pencil at different points, and by doing so imprint different levels of darkness, of tone, upon the paper. So if you hold it right at the top, it's really light. If you hold it in the middle, it's a bit darker. If you hold it at the end, it's a bit darker. And then, even after that, you can adjust the tightness of your grip on the pencil. So, but I don't know, I don't tend to consider that because I find it more difficult to have consistency. So a crucial thing is that you need to be able to create a consistent level of tone. You need to be able to reapply it to the areas you've identified as being of such a tone. And so I don't tend to change my grip that much because I find it difficult to repeat the exact precise level of grip on the next occasion on which it's necessary. And yes, it's more difficult to be consistent across different grips, I find. So I just focus on different types of pencils, different grades of darkness on the pencil. So this is 5H, the lightest. Different numbers of layers of rendering, and different positions at which the pencil can be gripped, and I tend to just have a very light grip. So yeah, all of that means you've got a range of tones at your disposal, the different combinations of these things. So for example, the lightest would be the lightest pencil, 5H, on the lightest grip position right at the end of the pencil, and only two layers, the fewest number of layers. That would be the lightest tone on your range. And then the heaviest would be here, 5B, and 4 layers. The maximum number of layers I tend to use. And then with the heaviest grip, with your hand positioned the furthest so far possible along the pencil. So yeah, that would be your range, and then you've got everything in between. So somewhere in the middle would be HB pencil, free layers, medium grip. So that's right in the middle. Yeah, so you've got these different tones, and you've got the areas that you're going to apply them to. Although you won't tend to use all those tones. I mean, maybe if you're an incredible mind and you can imagine a system of, what's the maximum number of colours in that of tones in that system? Because so you've got 12 pencils, and then you've got 3 different levels of layers, either 2 layers, 3 layers, or 4 layers. And then you've got 3 different positions on the pencil. So and then ignoring the grip. There's so 12 times 3 is 36, times by 3 again is 90, 108. So 108 different tones. If you can figure out a system which incorporates all of those, then that's pretty incredible. So I just tend to go for about, 4 or 5 tones at the moment. But this is increasing each time. So yeah, I would say tone 1, which I'd decide what tone 1's going to be. It's going to be, say, 5H at the lowest grip, say 2 times, so the lowest tone. And I would look at my screen, and you can't really see it very well because the light's reflecting off the screen a little bit. But so the lightest bits are here along the centre of the nose. If I do it a bit like that, maybe you can see it better, I don't know. So yeah, here on this section of the forehead is where the beam patch of a light is on the forehead. Then you've got this section right down the middle of the nose on the very centre, and yeah, so basically as the light's hitting the nose, the part that's closest to the light is the most light. So I think they call it the bridge maybe, or the highest point of the nose. So those two are about the same. I'd say that those two are tone 1. And then maybe, probably not if I'm being really precise, but maybe include the very top of this cheek here, the very centre patch there. So I'd say that's tone 1, and I'm just looking at the face at the moment. I ignore this, I'll do this later. And yeah, so first thing I'd do is the first step is to use 5H, the lowest tone or whatever you're doing, 5H, 2 layers on those sections that you've highlighted as being the lightest. Then you identify your tone 2. So really you identify the tones that you're going to do before you render any in. And generally tone 2 is going to be the patch just around tone 1. So here, around the patch around tone 1 on the forehead. here, patch between the eyes, alongside the lightest strip on the middle of a nose, just alongside it, and then at this area at the bottom of the nose here. Then the very centre point, the centre circle of this cheek here, and this area of this cheek here, this sort of triangle. So that would be my tone 2, and then I'd say tone 3, and you've got to assign some kind of consistent level of rendering to that tone. And then you say tone, so maybe 3H two times on the medium grip, and then you move on to tone 3, you create a new level of tone for this stage. So maybe H 3 times on the lightest or on the medium grip, and I'd say this area here above this left eye, and this area here above the left hand side of the right eye. Yeah, so as the light is coming from here downwards in this direction, as it hits the head, as it gets further away, as you go around the curve of the head, it will get darker and darker and darker and darker, and the light is central in the head. So yeah, here, so the lightest bit here, the grade 2 to the sides of it, grade 3 to the sides of that, basically on the forehead, and then this section here under the eye, so this section here would be grade 2, but then this section here, grade 3, this bit here, grade 3, this part under this eye here, grade 3, and then around the outsides of the cheeks, of the grade 2 bits on the cheeks, so grade 1 on the very centres of the cheeks, then grade 2 around the edges. Grade 2 in the very centres, grade 3 around the edges. And then you go grade 4. Grade 4, it's these bits at the side here. The area here under the eye where the shadow is cast by the protruding eyebrow, by the protruding bones in the face over the eye. So they cast a shadow into the eye socket. So this bit here is tone 4, it's about the same darkness as the side of the head here. And this bit over here as well. And then this eye socket's not as dark, really, this eye socket. Yeah, maybe you need to have another tone in there. I think I probably do need to have another tone in there, because this eye socket's not as dark as this one. But yeah, so eye sockets, and then really this should be another tone as well, I think, darker. That should be a tone 6 or 7 on the sides of the cheeks. So yeah, you look at your image and you try and divide it into about, the wider the variety of tones you use, the more complicated the image will be, the more real it will look. If you don't use many tones, then it won't look very 3D. It will look quite flat, like quite like a cartoon. Yeah. So, but generally you just divide it up into about 5 or 6 areas of relatively similar levels of tone. Assign them all a level of tone within the range that I explained, and yeah, shade them as such, starting with the lightest, moving on to the darkest, I tend to do. Okay, so I'm going to try and explain that quickly in Dutch, so if you only speak English you can turn the video off now. Oké, dus die video gaat om het proces van renderen zelf, niet om een van de delen. Een van de delen van de proces. Die ga ik dadelijk doen, maar niet tijdens deze video. Deze video alleen de theorie. Dus wat je moet doen is je moet proberen deze gebied proberen te delen aan kleuren van verschillende niveaus. Dus we gaan momenteel praten we alleen over het gezicht. En dus je moet verstaan wat je verschillende kleuren zijn die je kan gebruiken. En die zijn de 12 verschillende potloden. En dan kan je verschillende aantal lagen doen. Dus ik doe of 2 of 3 of 4 lagen. Dus dat is 3 verschillende aantal lagen die je kan gebruiken met de potlood. En dan ook kan je hem houden op verschillende posities, zoals verschillende grijpen. Oep. Ik heb mijn beeld vergeten. Ja, dus je kan de potlood ook in verschillende posities grijpen. En door dat te doen kan je een verschillende niveau van kracht gebruiken en dus verschillende niveaus van donkerheid verzinnen. Dus je hebt 12 potloden, 3 verschillende aantal lagen en 3 verschillende posities van grijpen. Posities waarmee je hem kan grijpen. Dus ja, je hebt 12 met 3 is 36. Dan 36 met 3 is 108. 108 verschillende toons zijn mogelijk, maar je gaat dat helemaal niet gebruiken omdat het te moeilijk is om je een systeem te voorstellen die zo ingewikkeld is. Je kan dat niet doen, of misschien kan ingenieurs dat doen, maar ja. Dus eerlijk gezegd, het is meer waarschijnlijk dat je gaat zoals 5 of 6 of zo verschillende kleuren hebben. En je moet zeggen, oké, dus mijn eerste toon is 5H. En ik ga met 2 lagen en op de lichtste grijppunt. En dus dat is je kan die herhalen. Elke keer die je wil de toon doen, dan kan je hem herhalen. Maar ik ga dadelijk geen tijd meer hebben. Dus met de eerste, ik zou zeggen, oké,